Hi, my name is Dr. Asia Lands, and I'm an assistant professor of anthropology and Africana studies. My focus is on bioarchaeology, so human skeletal remains, and specifically the remains of African descended ancestors. I work with Dr. Alexandra Jones, and I've been asked by the Statia Cultural Heritage Implementation Committee to give you all a brief presentation on what isotopic analysis is, how it's done, and what we can learn from it, and then also to talk about some alternatives to isotopic analyses. A lot of this information I'm drawing from work with my collaborator, Dr. Statia, who is an isotopes expert at Southern Illinois University Carbondale. Her info can be found here. Also, one of her publications that is very helpful in understanding how isotopes can be used in bioarchaeology. The simplest way to think about stable isotopes analysis is you are what you eat. So essentially, when we test the human skeleton, either bones or teeth, for stable isotopes, what we are looking for are different variants or forms of chemical elements that were incorporated into the body through eating and drinking. So we might measure carbon-13, nitrogen-15, sulfur-34, strontium-87 and 86, and oxygen-18. We won't get into all the meaning behind these, but essentially this is the number of neutrons that each of these elements have, and they tell us different things about what a person was ingesting. So again, because we essentially are what we eat, that means the chemical elements found in someone's skeleton, in their bones or in their teeth, these elements are reflecting their environment. It can tell us about their diet, what they ate, mobility, where they were located if they moved around, and the climate that they lived in. For example, oxygen can be used to tell us if someone lived in low latitudes or higher latitudes. Stable isotopic analysis is most effective and useful when used in conjunction with other ways of understanding our ancestors' pasts. Therefore, we often combine oral and archival history, artifacts coming from excavations, and other information gleaned from someone's skeleton in conjunction with these isotope values. These isotopes can answer questions about childhood nutrition especially. They also can tell us if someone was local to an area, or perhaps they were, say, brought over from the continent of Africa directly. And so these isotopes can be very useful, but what we must keep in mind is that this is a destructive process. It means that we have to take samples of bone or teeth so that we can analyze them and get these chemical elements out of them. So we have to weigh whether it is worth destroying parts of our ancestors' bodies to get the information we want, or perhaps there are other ways to get that information. To give you an idea of the amount of bone or dental enamel we need, isotopic analyses typically require 25 to 30 milligrams. So this illustration here, using modern fish bone for reference, the smallest piece is 10 milligrams, followed by 58 milligrams, and finally 498 milligrams, which is more than we would need for isotopic analyses. So what we would be looking at is somewhere in between this 10 and 58 milligrams, and for scale, we have a centimeter ruler below. Stable isotopic analyses have been done on many ancestors from the Caribbean. Typically, these studies are looking at, again, mobility, whether people were born on the islands, if they moved between islands, if folks were being brought over from Africa. They also can tell us a bit about diet. So, say, were people eating seafood or were they eating terrestrial mammals? They also tell us a lot about early childhood health. However, these destructive analyses are not always necessary, especially in cases where we have a lot of archival records. And so alternatives to get at information and understanding the experiences of enslaved peoples might start with looking at land ownership history, maps of the areas, records of the slave trade. We know that there are many, many resources in the National Archives of the Netherlands. There are ship logs to be found. There are travelers' accounts. There are a wealth of ways to get this information. Second, we can also do artifact analysis. So we can look at everything else that came out of the ground with these ancestors and not use their skeletons, and instead focus on the objects that were found close to them to better understand their lives.